Welcome into another edition of the Red Out Podcast. My name is Colonel Stewart, and guess what, guys? I am not a dumbass. We're waiting for the dumbass to come on the air now, but while we're waiting for him, let's go ahead and get started. We're talking volleyball, soccer, golf, Ohio State recap, and Troy this week. Stick with us.
Hey, how about them tops, son?
All day, SEC boys. SEC, they supposed to be SEC. Jersey all day, baby.
You're listening to the Red Out Podcast.
I am not ashamed to admit in the past, I've needed a therapist. We all need someone, and it's a strong person who can admit it. I talked to my doctor, who referred me to a therapist, and I really didn't have much say as to who the therapist was. But with this episode's sponsor, BetterHelp, you do. You can filter out who you would like to talk to, age, gender, religion, and more to pair you with the person who works best for you. And if the person isn't exactly who you were wanting, you're not stuck. You can switch counselors. BetterHelp strives to offer affordable, professional, and accessible online therapy. So go to betterhelp.com/redout today to save 10%. By doing this, you not only support us, you can work toward a brighter, healthier you. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. So, Matt, how's it going, buddy?
Good, man. How are you?
I think you're supposed to give your title this week.
Oh, attention, everyone. I am, sorry, people at church, I am a dumbass. And Tops got smoked, and I thought they'd be decent. They sucked.
I was going to do it more like AA, and you just be like, hello, I'm Matt, I'm a dumbass, and I'd be like, hi, Matt.
You want me to redo it?
No, you're good. You're good. No.
Okay.
I don't think anybody was expecting 63-10.
Not even you, huh?
No, I wasn't
You
expecting
negative
that.
Nancy.
Well, and most of the time I try to be nice, and I'll just be like, Western's playing the Green Bay Packers. Western's going to win this one 28-27. And it's like, no, they're not. Of course, I'm not dumb. I know I'm just trying to be a rah-rah and, positive about it. But it
delegitimizes everything if you're just like rose-colored glasses all the time.
Yeah, I'm obviously I'm not. Just ask me about gambling, but I listened to Coach Helton's speech on or post-game talk from the Ohio State game, and like me and you have been texting back and forth. The buck stops with the coach.
Yeah.
But I don't think he nor the team or anybody was expecting that kind of score.
Yeah, 35-7 in the second quarter. That's
yeah,
brutal.
They scored 6 touchdowns in the second quarter. So yeah, it kind of makes things a little more difficult. But we'll talk OSU here in just a second. I just want to go through a couple real quick things. In golf, I know golf team's doing really well, so I want to talk about them for just a second. The golf team is heading to South Carolina for the Lady Paladin Invitational hosted by Furman University. That's actually, the way I read the article on the WKU Sports page is that it's Furman University's, I think they've got like a 6,000 to 6,500 square yard golf course, which I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, they've got their own little golf course. It's a 72 par golf course. There are going to be 14 other teams there. There's some names you know, some names you don't know. But they're going to start on Friday. They're going to start at 10 a.m. Obviously, play 18 holes. Saturday at 10 a.m. and then Sunday they play at 9 a.m. You can check on the WKU Sports page to see the scores and see how Western is doing. I'm thinking Western's going to do really well in this because we've got teams. Hypothetically, I don't know how these other teams are because I'm not a big collegiate golf person. But we've got Memphis, Charlotte, Augusta, Coastal Carolina, Daytona State, East Carolina, Georgia State,
James Madison, Nevada, Tulane, North Florida, Old Dominion, and UNCW. What's it? Which one's that? North Carolina,
Wilmington.
Good call.
Yeah.
In my head, I'm like Greensburg. I know that's one. But yes. So I think Western can do fairly well in that tournament. As far as college powers, I mean, we've got Memphis, Nevada. I don't know how Coastal Carolina is. I don't know how James Madison.
I would guess Coastal
Tulane.
would probably be pretty good. They're right there at Myrtle Beach. They got all those incredible golf courses. I would guess.
I would say so too. I mean,
They're decent.
those are. I mean, just some of the bigger names of collegiate powers like North Florida. No idea, but Old Dominion, Tulane, Coastal Carolina, like you said. Maybe Georgia State, James Madison, and Memphis. Those could be some of the ones that come to the top, but we'll see. Then we've got soccer news real quick. Let's see. I'm sorry, I didn't get her first name. Irwin. She got the offensive player of the week. I don't know what she said to be offensive, but let me see here. See, you appreciate those jokes. I say that to my wife, and she just rolls her eyes. So, Katie
It just
Irwin.
says Irwin.
Katie Irwin was named Conference USA Offensive Player of the Week. She led She led Western to a 3-0 shutout against MTSU. So,
always nice to beat Middle.
Oh, it is so nice to beat Middle.
Freaking.
Let me add her first name into my show notes.
Catherine.
Catherine. Actually, okay, so my daughter's name is Abby, but her name is not Abigail. We just named her Abby.
Oh, really?
Yeah. My wife and I did not like Abigail, so we were like, how about Abby? Which, by the way, that was decided at like 8 or 9 o'clock the morning she was born. So,
oh gosh,
so it wasn't like we were like last minute.
You had no plan.
Yeah, we were just like, she's here. We'll figure it out. My wife, complete procrastinator in everything she does. She was like, well, her excuse was, well, I want to see her so I know if it fits her name.
Oh my
I'm
gosh.
like, she's going to look like a grandpa when she comes out. She's bald and she ain't got no teeth. How are you going to know
Earl?
what it fits?
Call him Earl?
Yeah. Her name is, I'm trying to think of like the oldest male name I can think of. Ezekiah or something, I'm like,
right.
Anyway.
Methuselah.
Methuselah. So, congratulations to Katie Irwin. Volleyball, 3 Hilltoppers earned Conference USA weekly honors. Paige Briggs, she was offensive again. God, she just can't watch her mouth. Kaylee Bauer, she was a setter. And then Gabby, she was the freshman of the week. The Lady Tops went 4-0 this past week. Paige had 74 kills. That's more than some 12-year-olds on Call of Duty. Callie had 175 assists, averaging 12.5 assists per set. And then Gabby, Gabby started every match in the middle and had 19 kills through 4 matches. She also had her highest hitting average per match at 538 in her first error-free match. Excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied.
Oh, wow.
So she, Lady Top's doing well. They will be playing again. They'll be playing UTEP. This episode will air on the 22nd. And so that the first match is going to be at 6 p.m. versus UTEP. And then the next match is going to be on the 23rd at noon against UTEP as well.
By the way, Devin, what is Gabby's last name?
Screw you.
I noticed you ignored it.
Yeah, I would say it's Weeha.
It's actually, I just looked it up because I just wanted to mess with you. It's Y, like WHY.
Is it Y? Okay, I'm gonna have to like make that. It's gonna have to be in my notes because for
those that don't have a visual, it's WEIHE. So God bless Devin trying to figure that out on the fly.
Dude,
but it's just Gabby Y.
Every day, I look at people's names like athletes. Like Iggy was the best name.
Oh Lord!
Like trying to say his name, I was like, and finally they were like, he just goes by Iggy, and I was like, oh, thank God. So,
yeah, that's a rough one, man.
But yes, back to talking OSU. I know you were really upset with the coach, which a lot of people would be. And in the grand scheme of things, everything stops with the coach, so I'm okay with that. But the biggest play for me, and I've even included it in my show notes. It was the 8-minute mark. Western, about 8:10 according to ESPN's counter here. Western did a 7-play, 75-yard drive and got it 10-14. And it's like, okay, we're in this game. Western kicks off. Ohio State gets the ball. One play, 75 yards to Marvin Harrison Jr. The only person faster than him on the field was that referee. I stand by that. But
was the ref with him?
The ref was about 5 yards ahead of him.
Wow.
Which I was
That's freaking impressive. He smoked. I don't know if it was Upton Stout or I forget who was covering him.
Supposedly it wasn't Stout, but I haven't watched the replay, so I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, Upton honestly did as good a job as you can. I mean, he's just he's a truly generational player.
He's good. He's really good.
Yeah. So I mean, we got beat. That was rough.
It
some
was.
of those plays in that quarter, but that one stood out like he was just 10 levels above our defense on that one. It's nothing you could really do. No. And it was a bad timing thing too. Just they obviously were not in a deep zone type of call, and it was kind of they were isolated and he went deep, so just one of those things. But it was ugly.
And apparently old boy turned on the gas and he just was gone.
I mean, he wasn't within we weren't within 10 yards of him. It was
and that's hideous. I mean, but and I've seen some posts on Facebook and stuff like that, and I think any given Saturday, I was going to say Sunday, any given Saturday, any team can go out and beat any team. My favorite one to think of is the App State versus Michigan back in the day. I think that's the biggest one like this century. That's the biggest upset this century. But and I think Western had a chance. We did have a chance up until that point, but there's factors that people aren't putting into effect. Coach Helton went for it on about every fourth down, and even in his own words, he said he went for every fourth down that wasn't stupid, or he thought was stupid.
Well, there was
that
one
the
that
best
I thought was
idea?
stupid.
Do I?
There was one that was pretty stupid, but other than that, I get the logic. But that 4th and 6 from our own 40 was malpractice.
I don't think you go for it on fourth down anywhere in your territory. So once you hit that 50, if you are on the opponent's 49, but you don't go for it because you're throwing your defense into a bind. And the way our defense is, you want to take up as much clock as you can. You don't, you want to give them the slow choke out. You don't want to go in and rush things like we ended up doing. But
here's my thought on that one. That to me, that was my turning point moment. That it was like, yep, we're screwed. Because right after that, it's 28-10, and then the route is on. They dump a bunch of points on, but it's 21-10. You're at the 40, your own 40. If you punt the ball away, there's 4:15 left or something like that. I have to look at the exact time on that. Yeah, it was 4 and some change minutes.
Yeah. Well,
if you punt it away, they're almost certainly they might score one more time before the end of the half. I mean, you don't know. Maybe they would have scored 2 or 3 more touchdowns anyway. But if you give them the entire field to gain with 4 minutes left, they may score one more time. You may be able to force them into a field goal. I don't know, and maybe come in with a chance to possibly get a field goal or touchdown of your own before the half. I mean, there were so many. You're basically not going to have it be 42-10 at the end of the half. It's going to be, it may be 28-10 at the worst. And I think if you came into that game and you can say, you know what, we're going to be within 2 or 3 scores of Ohio State at halftime, I think that's a win. And if you're if you're within 2 scores, like you really are in the game. Stuff can happen at that point. You come out and you pick 6 or whatever, and you're like right there. I just thought that was terribly. That was just it was terribly done. That one decision was just like, wow. I cannot believe that he did that when we were in the game. You're still in the game at that point.
Yeah, and that's okay. If just look at your scoring summary on ESPN. Obviously, they had 6 scores in that quarter, in that second quarter. Like Matt's saying, if we hadn't have gone for it, we're on our 40. Which, by the way, that is so reminiscent of somebody else, right, bro? It wasn't against Ohio State. That was against a much worse caliber team. But anyway,
Maine, they were tough.
Bruh, don't even
The Black
start.
Bears, bruh. They were playing chess, not checkers.
They drink that fresh water from Maine, bro.
Lobster bisque.
So
it was like they had a lighthouse and they could see everything we were doing.
I was just in a fog. I had no idea. No, that was just pot, Coach. That was just pot. So they, but he had a 40-yard run there. It was one play, 40 yards.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it was deflating as crap. I mean,
yeah, and and I will say, Coach Helton did say that 40 of those points were on him.
I would agree.
Well, I mean, it's a fair assessment.
Yeah. I mean, I think without his riverboat gambling for the first 2.5 quarters of the game, yeah, I think we're close to in it. I mean, we might have been 3 or 4 scores down, and you might have had more of a spread type of outcome.
Yeah.
And that's why I honestly thought that we would cover the spread is like, okay, we're not going to go for it on 4th and 6. We're going to be reasonable here. But I mean, there were other decisions too that, yeah. And I understand it now.
Even in your defense, though, like until this point, Helton's been conservative. Like it's almost psychologically uncharacteristic for him to do this. But at the same point, like he's like, what do we have to lose? Everybody's betting against us anyway, which I'm just as guilty. And he's like, what do we have to lose? If we go forward on 4th down, hypothetically, we get past this yard line, we're fine, yada, yada, yada. But, evidently it didn't work out that way. My other factor that plays into this game is the crowd. Yeah. You have 100,000 people screaming and yelling, which, by the way, that they are screaming and yelling after that Harrison Jr. touchdown, right? To put them up 21-10. So when we came out, like those dudes came out flat, and I don't care what anybody says, you could see it on their face. They were so down. It was one of those. It was like, and then after they took that 40-yard run, I don't think it mattered what happened. I don't think if it would have mattered if we had the ball on the 20-yard line going into their end zone. That's one of those things that it's like, I just don't know if they could have pushed themselves through it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But like you can just look at them. You look in their eyes and you can see that it's a here we go again look, or well, they're gonna, this is gonna hurt. It's gonna be a bad one. And honestly, if you take off 40 points from what Coach said is his fault, it's 23-10.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's extreme too. I mean, I feel like
and he even
10 or something.
Well, he even claimed and that's his numbers. If you took off his 4, that's what he said. Mm-hmm. But he's like, there was also 3 plays that were 1-play scores, which is true to an extent. Obviously, you had Harrison's, then you had that chip, Trojan, and 75.
The fumble recovery,
but then that's what I was going to say. That Tyleik Williams had the fumble recovery. That's the other one that I don't think they were counting, or that I think he was counting, and I don't necessarily count that as a 1-play score because it's a recovery in the end zone.
I mean, it was a one-play drive. We snapped the ball, handed off, and he fumbles. They score a touchdown.
So that game was that was a rough one, but it was I think it was a lot of good experience for the guys. It's getting to see players of higher caliber being able to play against them. Even Coach Helton said that Austin Reed, was getting rid of the ball faster than he wanted to, which is true. I don't want to sound skewed or elitist or whatever, because I'm not an Ohio State fan by any means, but in the grand scheme of things, 10% of high school players or less than that will make it to become a college athlete. Now, there are 120, 130 teams. If each team has anywhere from 70 to 80 players on it, running the math not very quickly off of my phone because I just grabbed it.
You talking scholarship players, or are you talking?
I'm just talking team. I'm just saying they're on the team.
They all have 100 and more than 100.
Well, it's 70 players for 130 teams is 9,100. So that's 9,100 people, and then you've got to go from, we'll just say 9,100 players down to 1,696. That is how many players possibly are going to be on NFL teams on the 53-man roster. So you have that's what you've got to get on a roster. So I'm going to say, and take it with a grain of salt, that Western will have some guys. We have guys who are pro tops, and we talk about them most every week. But I'm going to say Ohio State's going to have a few more that are going to be pro top or pro Buckeyes, whatever. They're going to have a few more than we will. They'll have guys that are going to be on practice teams, yada, 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 just like we do. But they're going to have a couple more than we will. Now, I'm not saying that they're all high caliber, but some of them position by position are probably more caliber than we do. I think we've got a better quarterback, my opinion, but just my opinion.
Well, by the way, Kyle McCord came out of nowhere for this game. I mean, he had a much nicer game than he's played any of the other two. And I think
because he's played against our defense.
Maybe. But, I mean, honestly, even whatever, bro. I mean, the 300 yards, no interceptions. He threw over 80%. Yeah. I mean, yes, I understand that our defense is not elite right now. But still, I mean, he even against, like Youngstown State, really. I mean, it's not like their defense is better than our defense. Certainly not as talented. He came to play, and he did a really good job. Only took one sack. Whatever. I mean, there was a lot of really positive things that he did. And I mean, good for him. There were a lot of reasons why I think Ohio State just completely blew us out. I think they woke up a little bit. They certainly were not showing what they showed against Western, and I think we pissed them off when it was 14-10. I think they were like, you know what, screw this, and I think that's when they woke up, and it was on from there. But I think Austin, you're talking about Austin and everything. He he had a rough game in some ways. It wasn't his most efficient. He didn't produce 500 yards or anything, but he did a good job. And one thing that he always does that's incredible to me is he is so good at avoiding a sack. I mean, he is a master at getting out of there and finding a way not to take a sack. He takes some hits, but the man gets rid of the ball, or he finds a way to scramble out or something. The fact that we've only given up one sack is not necessarily because the offensive line is the most elite in the history of the world. They're obviously very good. You can't give up one sack in 3 games and not be really good. But a lot of it is him being able to move around in the pocket and make them look about as good as he possibly could. He's amazing at it. That's one of his huge gifts that I think is probably better than any of the other great Western quarterbacks.
I think I kind of agree with you that Austin Reed is, he's a really good athlete. He's a really good quarterback. And, I think the rest of this season is very possibly like could be his highlight reel. And I'm not even kidding when I say that.
Yeah.
He's a very good quarterback. I love about everything he does. And he's not afraid to run it, which I'm fine with that. In most instances, there was a couple this past weekend. I was like, "Oh, don't get hurt." But we've got Troy, MTSU, La Tech, Jacksonville State, Liberty, UTEP, New Mexico State, Sam Houston, and FIU. He could go off on every one of these teams.
I'll be interested to see against Troy because last
well,
year we battled.
obviously, yeah. Which, by the way, I did not realize that our nemesis or rival or Doji, Garrett Doji, ran out of eligibility.
Yeah.
So that was a shocker for me.
Get old Daggy.
Yeah, Doji, whatever his name is. But yeah, let's jump into let's talk some betting, Matt. What do you want to say this week?
Yeah, man. Thanks, Devin. I am excited to bring our betting segment to the tops. So September 28th, which is here, it's next week, is when it officially opens in Kentucky that you can bet by like online on sports. And so I just wanted to bring something about that and just kind of talk about your options, especially as it relates to WKU. And so my major thing this week with the Western line and everything right now. At the time I'm reading this, Troy is favored by 3.5, so they're minus 3.5. And so, anytime in betting in football, you look at like certain thresholds where, like, if it's more than a touchdown, that's a little bit more significant than if it goes from 5 to 6 points. So if it goes from 7 to 8 points, that's a big deal. Or if it goes from a field goal to more than a field goal. So in this case, they're saying that WKU is going to lose by basically 4 or more points. And so Western's just a slight dog. And so if you bet on Western and you say, we'll take the 3.5 for WKU, that means that if Western loses by 3 or less, or if they win, then you double your money. One thing you could do too is you could also bet outright on Western, because that little amount is, I mean, the chances that it's 1, 2, or 3 points is pretty small. Obviously, it can't tie. So the chances that the team that covers the spread also wins the game is pretty strong. And so you got a couple different options there. But I definitely think that 3.5 is interesting because WKU could still possibly lose to Troy, and you could still win your bet if you take that 3.5. So, and if you think Troy's going to win by 4 or more, then drop something on Troy. But I think it's an interesting line, and I would consider if I was forced to bet on something in this game, I believe I would take the 3.5 in favor of WKU, because I do think it's going to be close, but I think the chances are that most likely that either it's extremely close or WKU wins, but we'll see. I'm interested to see how it goes.
I will say, just
I
looking,
honestly wouldn't touch it in this case. I would go somewhere else,
well,
but that's my opinion.
okay. Here's my deal. You can bet straight up for Western and just say Western win. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm just looking here. If you bet $10, you win 15 if Western wins. So that's not too bad.
Is it? Yeah, so it's 2.5 to 1 if
I'm on FanDuel. And it's a plus 152 for Western, and it's a minus 184 for Troy. So if you bet Troy, you only make 543 if they win. And that's not over under. Now, I will say I don't know a lot about gambling, and I talk a lot of smack about it, but there are so many points in the spread allotted to the home team. So I think I can't remember if it's 1.5 or 2.5. That is allotted to the home team. So some of that towards Troy, they think so. Evidently, like Vegas thinks this game's going to be really close, is what I'm hitting at.
Oh yeah, it's
So
basically if this was played at Western, Western would be favored by
3.5
maybe a point.
probably. Yeah,
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, I don't even think it'd be
I
that
will-
much. I think basically what it means, I think, is, I mean, obviously it's hard to tell without seeing both numbers, but I'd
Yeah.
say they think Troy is like slightly better than WKU if they played on a neutral field. Like it'd be like minus 0.5 or -1 or something like that would be if they were playing, say they were playing in Memphis or something.
Yeah.
So
I think honestly,
for what
I think
that's
the best bet. I'm gonna put it in my show notes real quick. The best bet would be to take the money line for Western to win, which is 152. It's a plus 152.
yeah.
Which
so what
will
that means
give,
is,
if you bet 10, you get 15.20. If you bet 100, you get 152. No change.
yeah,
Uh,
you gain that too. So if you put in 10, you actually get back 25.20.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So
you're getting a little bit more than twice your money back. That
um,
is a good one.
but and like I said, that
Over
game's gonna
under
be
is
really
interesting too, Devin.
Yeah, but well, let's see. And this is where I get
The over
confused
under
on
is
the
58 and a
betting sites.
half.
Yeah, but my confusion on some of my problem though is you're not going to make your money back if you go over under. Because if you say
Well,
over,
you
you're going to
just
get $9.43, whereas if you bet the under, you get $8.77. That's kind of like if you bet 10, you get $8.77 according to what I'm looking at on FanDuel.
okay.
So I think the money line bet.
Okay.
Okay. If you go on the FanDuel app, they've got. I'm sitting here looking at the Troy Western game, and they've got like 6 different options on this. Another thing you could do is you could do a parlay bet, where there's like 3 teams, and you could do Western, and they've got different parlays set up to bet on that. Sorry, I feel a sneeze coming on. I'm trying to.
So what I was getting at on the over under, I'm not sure. Like I said, I'm not sure what you're looking at, and I'm actually downloading the app right now because we need it for future episodes. But anyway,
but the over. What I'm saying though
Go ahead.
is like if you get the over, I just don't think the money's there. But like I said, I'm not a big person as far as like over under gambling, because if I'm not mistaken, like if Western wins, I know they're giving Troy the 3.5, but if Western wins, is that the under? I always get confused. I don't
Say
know.
what now?
I'm confusing myself. If Western wins, that's not the under, right?
No, the over under. Like, okay, I'm looking at the
You're
ESPN
just saying
app.
total points.
Okay.
You're just saying total points.
Total
right?
points, 58 and a half. Okay, so basically you take over under the total score. So regardless of who scores it, if WKU scores 59 points and it's 59-0, then that's over. If Troy scores 59, whatever. If it's a game that goes 29 to it's 30-29 at the end of the game, that's still over. If it's under, then it's under. And so looking at that number, we know that last year's game was way under that. It was 20-17.
Yeah.
And WKU's offense has struggled. And obviously WKU's defense has struggled too. But to me, that's kind of an interesting number because that seems a little high to me. Okay, Troy allowed 30 to Stephen F. Austin. Obviously, maybe they were getting warmed up. I don't know. They gave up 42 to Kansas State.
Sorry.
You're
just
good,
doing
bro.
the numbers here. No, you're good. Let me do I'm just doing a quick average of everything. Like you said, Troy scored 48 against Stephen F. They scored 13 against Kansas State, and they scored 14 against James Madison. That gives us 75 over 3. It's 25 points per game they're averaging. And we're averaging about 34, I think is what I figured up, between 33 and 34. I mean, you could take the over, but I would – Western's defense is not going to be what we're going to have to worry about. We're going to have to worry about Western's offensive scores. Troy's allowing 309 yards a game. We allowed 490, which is inflated. It's skewed, but I think Western. I think it could be a barn burner, but I'm not thinking so. So I don't know if the over.
I think I'm like
the points over is good.
Yeah, I like under on that. I think the best bet if you're betting WKU, and we talked about a few, but I think the over under at 58.5, go under, because Troy. We know Troy's defense is good. It's we don't know exactly how good it is, but even if they're a little worse than last year, we struggled to figure out how to move the ball against them. The James Madison is a quality team, and they hung right with them at 16-14. They're gonna play most of their games in the teens and 20s. And WKU's offense has not shown that it's truly elite yet. We haven't had that, oh my God, wow, we just got 650 yards of offense and looked incredible type of game. We haven't seen that yet. Austin Reed still hasn't. I don't believe he threw for 300 against. Has he thrown for 300 in any game yet?
I don't remember if he has or not. Let me check his stats while I'm sitting here with you.
He did against Ohio State.
He threw. Sorry, I'm trying to look at the games.
I don't think he did any game.
He threw for 336 against Southfield.
That was the one game that he's thrown, because Houston Christian, it was like 250 or something. So he hasn't had that like 300, 400, 500 yard type of game, 5 touchdowns, nothing like that. So I think we're still trying to get in the groove, and we're still getting, like, Matheson is still out. Tyson said he was definitely still out, possibly for another couple of weeks. Dalvin Smith, I think he's close to being back. He may not even be back this week. And so I just think that looking at the numbers, I think that's your best possible option to feel pretty good, is just go with the under at 58.5. How that works is basically, like, say you put $10 down. If you win the bet, then you get 20 back. It's just a 50-50 type thing. So that's what I would do.
Now, disclosure,
the no-brainer.
Disclosure, don't be blaming us if you lose. If Western scores 60 in this game, don't blame us.
I mean, don't listen to me. I said take the under last week, and obviously that wasn't even close. So maybe
I'm a simple person. I just want to say this team wins, that team wins. So that's why I do money line. That's why I'm suggesting money line. So I'm saying bet tops. You're gonna make $15 because I think that's a good bet.
I'm complicated and can't commit. So I'm just thinking style of game. I think it's gonna be low scoring. So there you go.
I think you may be right. I don't know. Of course, they played James Madison, who beat them by 2, but I just don't know how well. I haven't seen a lot of film on them. We tried to get the guys from Trojan Wall on today, but our schedules weren't lining up. I will say, apparently James Madison's doing really freaking good. They beat Virginia 36-35. I don't know how well Virginia is.
Yeah, they were good last year.
So, they're playing
ACC. But
well, James Madison is first in Sun Belt in football, so.
Well, yeah, James Madison had a great breakout year. That was their first year in the FCS, and they weren't eligible to be in a bowl game. But last year I forget what their record was, but they're very good defensive team, and probably could win the Sun Belt this year for sure. So anyway,
sorry, I was just looking at the Washington James Madison score, which is way out from where I started. So I would honestly, as far as betting goes, I'm simple. I'm taking the money line. It's going to make you $15 on your bet. Whereas if you want to take over/under, that's up to you. But I think Tops are going to take this game. My opinion. We'll talk predictions in a little bit. Any other good? And if there is a parlay bet with Western, I'd say take it. I'd say you got it. But our TTR gambling expert, he's pretty pessimistic most days, so I don't know. Let me see here. Okay. So talking Troy
last week cost him some money.
Yeah.
Let's talk Troy. Let's go.
Yes, Troy football. So, sorry, I just got to make my note. Got to make my time note so it's a little easier when I do post later on. But with Western playing Troy this week, Troy has not had the easiest start to their schedule. They've lost 2. They lost to, like we were just talking about, they beat Stephen F. Austin, and they lost to Kansas State and James Madison. The James Madison game was really close for them. Let's see. Yeah, Troy is 1-2 overall, 0-1 in their in the Sun Belt Conference. So they're having a little bit rougher start for them. But Western's, of course, we haven't started conference play yet. That starts next week. But we're doing a lot better. We beat South Florida. We beat Houston Christian, and then losing to Ohio State. I honestly think you're coming out with a chip on your shoulder this week.
You think WKU is or Troy?
Yes. Okay. Well, and the other thing too that we're not talking about is Troy. Well, did they have a bye last week or no? They had a Tuesday game, didn't they? No, they had a game on Saturday.
Looks like
they played. They played on the 16th. This is September 16th.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I thought they had a bye. But I guess I was wrong. Okay. So they played Troy. Go ahead.
I think you've got 2 teams that have kind of disappointed this year. I think, obviously as WKU fans, we're happy. This is exactly where you wanted to be record-wise. But we haven't had that, like I said, that impressive performance yet. Whether it was against Ohio State and trying to keep it close, or whether it was, absolutely dominating South Florida or Houston Christian. We had in each game, there was something that you're like, man, that's not exactly what I wanted to see. But I think that's also happened with Troy. I really don't think they would be thrilled with beating Stephen F. Austin 48-30. Their defense is supposed to be, elite and excellent, and they give up 30. Surely they're not thrilled with that. Kansas State, they're probably okay with that. It was 42-13. They're a ranked team. It's kind of like, that's kind of what you expect. And then James Madison, they open up their Sun Belt Conference play and lose to James Madison. So they're not off to their best start that they could possibly imagine. So I think both teams are kind of like, in my opinion, they're looking to kind of rebound from a slow start. So I think mentally it's kind of interesting because one team is going to go farther in the hole or kind of have even more questions versus the other team could come out with a confidence boost and ready to go with the rest of their schedule.
Yeah, I tell you what, I was just looking at is the first game. Obviously, we've been saying Stephen F. Austin a lot. They beat them 48-30. That's just like, for me, they're in the, what is it, the UAC or whatever it's called. The UAC is where Stephen F. Austin is. What do you call it? The Under Athletic League, Under Athletic Conference. So anyway, they're in the UAC.
That's what you're going with that? Okay, I got you. I thought you were.
I was talking about Stephen F. Austin Lumberjacks, which, by the way, Lumberjacks.
Do they even have forests in Texas?
Not in that part. It's all swampy down there. But like this looking at the game cast from that game, and of course not watching it, not knowing what's going on. In the first quarter, Troy scored 3 TDs, and SFA scored a kicked field goal. So 21-3 at the end of the first, and then Troy comes back. They score 10 in the second, and SFA scores 17 points in the second quarter. Of course, it's a little back and forth play, so you'll have to take that with a grain of salt. But, Troy scores 10 points in the third, field goal and TD. And then Stephen F. Austin scores a field goal and a TD in the fourth quarter while Troy scores one touchdown just to kind of keep them out of it. But, that is not a game where it looks like the team, Stephen F. Austin backed down at all. That's that's a score where they're like, you know what, we may not be as good as you, but we're going to keep pushing it. Troy had 4 turnovers in that game.
Yeah.
So that could be a definite something you want to take advantage of if you're Western's defense.
Yeah,
so
absolutely, that is interesting, and that just shows that both teams have not been as sharp as they would want to be, just in general. And so I am interested to see how it goes. I mean, obviously, the Ohio State thing, if you try to look at any numbers with WKU, it's just not going to be as indicative of the truth. But I do think you start to see tendencies for example, WKU's run defense. We all know, if you've been paying attention to WKU at all, the run defense has been terrible in every game. So it's kind of okay, we've got to have some kind of way to slow them down running the ball. They get 133 yards a game. That's kind of middle of the road. So that's kind of hard to say which way that's going to go. So it should be kind of a straight up opportunity to show that you've improved a little bit. Keep them under 200 yards, hopefully rushing, hopefully under 150 if possible. But that may be a tall ask for the WKU defense. So I kind of see some matchup issues for WKU against Troy. In terms of the run defense, and Troy is kind of a smash mouth opponent that likes to play defense and control the ball and all that type of thing. WKU's offense hasn't been elite, and we had real troubles with Troy last year. So if that continues into this year, I wouldn't go down to Troy thinking that WKU is just definitely going to win. I think this is an absolute coin flip. I think we're going to need some big performances from some people, some turnovers, like Austin Reed really coming out and producing a 300-yard type of game. Somebody bust a big run. I think we're going to need some big plays this week and not just rely on dinking and dunking and hoping that the defense just doesn't completely suck, because I think we could lose if that's the strategy.
Yeah, I think you're right. And, of course, I don't know if you touched on this, but Troy and Stephen F., 342 yards on the ground for Troy.
Yeah.
That's 8.1 yards per rush. That is wild.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they didn't have – neither team had a lot of penalties. But like I was saying, Troy had 3 fumbles lost and 1 interception. So that – that to me is the epitome. You have to hit the running back, and you got to get him to pop that out. And even I'm sitting here watching the replay, and I'm pretty sure that was Troy that just popped the running back. Ball popped out, and they just took off down the field. No, that's Stephen F. that just popped him. Never mind. I'm sorry.
But
I've got a 3-inch by 2-inch screen. I'm looking at the replay up here in the corner as I was looking at stats. But they smacked
get a
him
lot
pretty
out
good.
of that. Keep watching that. Give us some analysis there, buddy.
Yep. Looks like Troy just scored. So it's their highlights. Touchdown, Troy. Yep.
Anyway, so
did you ever go to Troy? Did you ever play against them?
I did.
Personally,
no, I didn't.
Personally?
No, I did. I went to Troy. And I remember their fans were funny. Their student section, they did the, We Salute You.
Yeah.
They did that to me because I was getting fired up or whatever. You know how I was on the sideline and stuff.
No.
And they go, yeah. One thing I remember was Wells was saying something to the O line about It's like they're soft AF, whatever. They're weak, and so are their freaking fans or whatever. And they got all pissed off, and they started like giving them hell. And Wells goes, "Yeah, I said that." Like he's just egging them on. It was hilarious. They were really going for it.
Oh my gosh!
So for me, they were going, "We salute you, Towel Boy, for thinking that you really make a damn bit of difference."
That's
They're
hilarious.
pretty funny, and their fans were funny. But yeah, it was a pretty good atmosphere from what I remember. And it looks like attendance wise, they still average in the 20s in attendance, so they have a pretty good fan base, and I imagine it'll be a pretty decent crowd. I would think.
Yeah,
Probably a little deflated from losing to James Madison, but I'm sure they'll be active and a quality road atmosphere.
I mean, it honestly looks like James Madison just kind of shut them down.
JMU's good, man. If you haven't
Yeah.
paid attention to James Madison, they seem like some kind of rinky-dink, brand new FCS transition team.
Yeah,
But they're solid. They're really, really good, and I was shocked how good they were last year. They're continuing it this year. So beating Troy's a quality win.
and Troy had a turnover against them too. They had an interception thrown.
Yeah. Here
and
what
honestly,
concerns me. Go ahead, man. Go ahead.
I was going to say our defense is really stellar. Like as far as our DBs are concerned, our DBs are, and it didn't show last week against Harrison Jr. and some of them, but we've got some good DBs. We could get some good picks off this team. Troy did have negative 12 yards rushing against James Madison.
Yeah. Wow. I
19 rushing attempts. 19 rushing attempts. So
I noticed they had about 300 yards, so they couldn't run the ball. That's interesting. I will say, yeah, it does look like turnovers are an issue. It also looks like they've given up 10 sacks on the year. So maybe offensive line is a concern. I'd say that's definitely a place that we could take some advantage there.
I do too, yeah.
We haven't had the most elite rush, but if we could get 2 or 3 sacks, get some pressure on them, obviously their offensive line is not terribly elite, and that may be why they've struggled to run the ball consistently. So obviously they had that one game against Stephen F. Austin. They had 300 yards, but even including that game, they've only averaged 133. So that's actually kind of a little bit more rough than it might seem up front. So there could be some ways that we could take advantage of maybe offensive line, maybe turnovers. They've thrown 3 interceptions and they've given up 4 fumbles, so they've had some turnover issues. So I'd say it comes down to is Troy steady? If Troy is steady and takes care of the football and is solid, I feel like that's a problem for WKU.
Yeah.
If WKU creates some explosive plays, shows that they're the more athletic team, things like that, I think WKU will win and maybe possibly win pretty easily. But I think if Troy can protect the quarterback, if they can minimize the turnovers and stuff, I think they could win by a few touchdowns as well. So I wouldn't want to be betting whether WKU or Troy wins because I think there's so many variables to it as far as that goes. It could go. I mean, it could swing 3 touchdowns either way, in my opinion. So
but you should take the under, right?
Yeah, I think in general it's going to be a lower score. I don't think both teams are going to score 59 total points, but whatever, man.
I mean, honestly, I don't know, and we could be wrong on that. Like I said, the over under is 30 or is 58.5. Technically, if we score 30, they score 29. You hit the over, but it doesn't matter. We're off betting, but as far as
I wasn't trying to take a shot at that. I was just saying I don't know what's going to happen. That was my point. I really don't know where this could possibly go. I don't have a feel for this is either going to be a real close game or WKU is going to blow them out, or Troy has the upper hand here and we better be careful or we could get blown out. I have no idea. I see Troy's got a really good defense.
Yeah.
They have an offense that is inconsistent, but looks like they can move the ball through the air if they get a chance. But
Yeah.
they're mistake prone, and so I'm interested to see how this really shakes out, because it's hard to pinpoint how good these teams are. It's early in the season; you don't know whether WKU is going to go 11-1, whether Troy is going to be 10-2, or whether somebody's going to be 500.
Yeah.
It's tough to tell.
Well, and especially with like talking about Western here specifically, I think Western is the better team. I think Troy has different aspects that could cause us some grief, but with Troy, I think they, like you said, they are run heavy. They are not as pass heavy, which the run heavy part could give us issues, but as far as passing it and taking care of the ball, I think we could capitalize on some of Troy's mistakes. So that's where I think we can have an advantage, hopefully on Saturday. Then you've got the other flip side of it is they're a better defense. Whereas I would say if you're looking at both sides of the ball, we're a better offense. So it could be a very interesting matchup for that as far as that goes. Now with Western, losing to Ohio State, if I was just a random listener, I would say, you have to set that game aside and look at the previous games to see how Western did. South Florida is a very high caliber team.
Yeah.
So Western is
what's Abby's prediction?
What's Abby's prediction? Okay,
Yeah.
we got a couple minutes here. We'll do our predictions real quick, and I'll bring Abby in. Down the door. Hello. Come on. Can you say hi to everybody?
Hi, Abby.
You gonna be shy?
Oh,
He said hi.
hi.
Oh. Okay, so Western predictions real quick. I would say Western. I'm gonna give Western. I'll say 35-21. I'll write that down.
Okay.
Why are you going to write that down?
So I don't forget, so I can put it in my show notes.
Oh man. Yeah, I
Say
think.
hi, Matt.
So you think 35-21?
I'll say
Okay.
35-21, and that still stays under the 58 for you.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I noticed that. So I think it's going to be a lower scoring game, and I wonder if we're going to struggle one more game because we're still missing some of our receiver depth. There are still rumored to be some defensive players that haven't even seen the field that probably would start or be in the rotation.
okay,
And so I still think we're missing some of our better players. And I do think since we struggled so much catching the ball, anybody that's missing in the receiving core is just making it a little bit more difficult for us to function. So I think I hate to do this, honestly. I kind of lean a little bit to Troy winning in a close game.
okay.
Yeah, I know that's probably a surprise, and I would trust me. I want to pick Western, man, of course.
I agree. I hear you.
But I'm concerned because we haven't shown that elite offense. We haven't shown an ability to just dominate. And I really think Troy's a matchup issue. I think, like I said, I think the key is if we can force some turnovers and stuff. But if we don't, I think we lose. I think if we don't force significant turnovers or we're in the backfield all day or something like that, I think we'll lose.
Yeah.
And so long story short, I'm going to say I think it'll be a little higher scoring than last year. But I think it'll be in the 20s. I'm going to say 28-24 Troy, and I want to vomit. But that's what I really think will happen.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I think
What is this, Dad?
it's a toy. So anyway, with so you're going 28-24. I'm going to say 35-21. And the reason I'm thinking that is I think Western's going to be able to capitalize on some of the mistakes that Troy's going to make. Of course, we're going to be down there in Troy. which, by the way, worst thing at Troy is that pass fell incomplete.
Is that what they did?
anyway.
I didn't remember the announcer.
So,
By the way, I was looking at when we were loading on stuff, and I got on Troy's website. They have $11 general admission tickets. So if anybody's trying to go down there,
wow,
yeah, $11 to get in the game. So it's super cheap. Definitely would be worth a trip to go down there and watch what should be a really close game and cheer on the Tops.
Now that game is going to be at 12 noon. That's on Saturday on ESPNU. So Devin, oh, you want to go draw? Okay, you draw. So that's going to be at 12 noon on the 23rd. So definitely check that out. It's going to be in Alabama, like Matt said. It's supposed to be nice weather. It says there's a chance of rain on ESPN. We'll see. And ESPN is giving Troy 56.5, but I'm not betting on them. And I'll tell you why, because last year we did that in basketball, and they always gave them the advantage. What?
Why are you going to wait out with
I don't know. Anyway, so thanks for joining us, guys. The episode should air on Thursday. Like, share, and subscribe, and check the chapters if you want to skip ahead. If you don't agree with Matt and I on our bets, leave a comment and let us know what you think. Which way should we lean? Which way should we bet? If you have some advice for us, go for it. We're really new at this, and we'll appreciate it. Western plays, like I said, tomorrow, or not tomorrow, Saturday at 12 noon, and we'll be back next week to talk some more football. Western will be playing. I don't think we got a Thursday game coming up, do we? MTSU is on the 28th, so that's next Thursday. Okay, we're good. We'll talk about the MTSU game next week. That's next Thursday at 7:30 p.m. on CBS Sports Network. So we'll talk about that game next week. Hopefully we'll get some guests in here that we can work the schedule out with. But as always, guys, go Tops.
Go Tops.
Thanks, bud.
Yeah, man. Man, she's grown up, dude.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
We do sing-alongs with some of my stupid stuff sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of fun.
All right, buddy. We'll see you around.
Have a good one.